Sussex. Now, a group from Lancashire calling themselves the Nanas have arrived at Horse Hill, which is a site near Gatwick Airport where UK oil and gas are testing for potential future production of oil. Now, those early tests have been promising. The company says oil flows naturally to the surface from a depth of 900 metres at a rate of 460 barrels a day. They say this will not involve fracking and the process will not happen under any circumstances. Now, the North and South Unite Against Extreme Energy Group are at the site, combining protesters from both the North and South. Last week, I spoke to Stephen Sanderson, who's the Chief Executive of Oil and Gas, who say that fracking will not happen.
It's looking exceptionally promising. I think this is clearly the one of the best, if not the best well drilled in the onshore in the UK for 15 years. We've sent our first 2 trucks of 177 barrels each to Hollyborn, and then it will go on to the refinery. They're worth about £3,800 each. So, yeah, very good news.
Now, of course, protesters have gathered, people very concerned about fracking. You've been adamant that there will be no fracking, in which case, how does this oil get extracted?
Well, it's just extracted by, entirely conventional methods. The oil is actually flowing naturally out of the rocks in the subsurface. We've done absolutely no fracking. As I said before, categorically, this formation at this stage does not require it. We're actually above the 1,000-metre fracking ceiling in any case.
Well, that's what UKOG had to say. Let's now talk to Tina Louise Rothery, who's head nana from the North and has come to join in the protests going on there. Tina, thank you for joining us on the programme.
Thank you very much for having me on.
First of all, why did you decide to add your support to this?
Because we've been living with this for 400 years, 4.5 years in Blackwall in Lancashire, where I live, when the first frack happened in the United Kingdom in April 27 and led to 2 minor earthquakes and a considerable amount of light seismic activity, which rather alerted us to the fact that they were there, because we weren't even aware, really, that this was going on where we were. The moratorium held till 2012, and then now we succeeded in stopping planning last June, but we're in the middle of an appeal right now.
What do you make then when you hear Stephen Sanderson, Chief Executive of Oil and Gas, he says there will not be fracking, this site isn't even suitable for fracking? Is there any point in protesting if that's the case?
Well, I feel quite lucky in that Professor Heseldean of Edinburgh University is OBE, and he's head of geological up in Edinburgh, and he has made it clear that because they've redefined what fracking is, they've altered the depths and the liquids quantities used, that therefore changes it from being fracking. They've made a very tiny definition of what fracking is. But you know what? Either way, this is unconventional drilling. It isn't conventional. He even said, the head of UKOG, that they would look to unconventional methods to get the most out. And then if you think of what our own Prime Minister said in December at COP21 in Paris, that we agreed, we cannot keep taking this stuff out of the ground. You know, this is a short-lived exercise, and why would you do it and work with all the infrastructure that's going to be required here with compressor stations and so on? Why would we even put ourselves through that for a short-term industry that we can't, according to our agreement with Europe, we can't do this?
Do we not need it, though? If you talk about, I mean, they say this is one of the most promising sites in a very long time, and it could produce at a rate of 460 barrels a day. Isn't that something that we need?
The could produce is sometimes very challenging, because the amount that is potentially available, yes, but the ability to extract that is not as easy as saying that will match what's actually there. Also, I think it's worth considering that we have, we all each subsidise the fossil fuel industry to the tune of £400 per person in the United Kingdom every year. You know, and yet we don't subsidise renewables anymore, and we're making it very difficult for them to progress. You know, there's 60% tax breaks for this industry. There isn't that for renewables.
How long, Tina, are you intending to stay then? I presume that, you know, as you say, you've united with protesters from here. What's the plan?
Well, mostly we are really grandmas, so we do have to get home to the grandkids and the family. So we'll travel back up tonight, but then we'll look to be coming down again over the next however long this takes. And we'll keep journeying down as often as we frequently can.
Well,
I think it's important that we show the solidarity and support for people down here, because we've already experienced what it's like to deal with a certain amount of deceit and difficulty with the companies and what they're saying. So we come down with information more than anything, as well as cake, a smile and some solidarity.
Tina, thank you for joining us on the programme. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest developments on that. Breakfast.